Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to talk about a brand new news video that went up on the official Marvel Future Fight channel. This is Marvel Future Fight news number 2 with English subtitles in Korean. And if you're not familiar with these two cats, they uploaded a few months ago the 5-year anniversary news number 1 video that we covered 3 months ago. And in that video, they introduced themselves as CM Monday and CM Sunday from right to left here. And they did a really good job of introducing the update for Black Widow in the 5-year anniversary, talking about the new characters, Yelena and Red Guardian. And then they also talked about Squad Battle. They talked about some player feedback, good and bad. And they also discussed character reworks. And this was the first time that we saw clues hinting at reworks for both Dormammu and Odin. Now, since then, Odin has been reworked, but Dormammu has not. But they sort of reflected in the video how these characters just aren't really living up to their expectations, whether you look at the comics in the game, or you look at the MCU in the game, or you just look at how popular they are and how weak they are. So character reworks were a pretty big part of this video, and of course, it's pretty interesting and meaningful that they talked about Odin being reworked, and this was back in April, at the end of April, right? And then if you take a look a couple months later, right, we're in July and Odin gets a rework. So yeah, very interesting. Now, I don't think we should read into this next video with 100% certainty that these things are going to happen in this specific order. But nevertheless, we're going to talk about it, and I'm going to give you my feedback, give you my opinions, my reactions to their video here. It's a very good video. It's very well produced. I think that CM Monday and CM Sunday have very good energy and sort of chemistry between each other, and they work well off each other. There's enough humor, but there's also enough actual information. It's a little bit unclear, I would say, although this uploads the official channel and it's called Future Fight News, it's a little bit unclear whether what they're saying is coming directly from the developers, because in this video, they do make more concrete claims about future content. So that's something I would like for them to sort of clear up. If they do have this information coming directly from the devs and they're sort of relaying that information to the community, I would assume so, but I don't think it's something that you should necessarily assume in this situation, because then if it's not the case, you get your hopes up, you know, false expectations, disappointment, you know, people get upset. It's very important as a community manager, if that's what these two guys are, to be as clear as possible and to sort of set the expectations with the audience as soon as possible. So that's when I do that. I try to do that whenever I bring you guys stuff that's not factual, when it's speculation or it's a leak or something. I always do my best to really hammer home those points so that you don't get the idea that what I'm saying is the truth or is absolutely with 100% certainty going to be added. So anyways, the video is still very, very good, and there's a lot of funny jokes and there's a lot of good editing here. So they introduce themselves again, CM Monday and CM Sunday. They do this a lot where they post the feedback from users and they post sort of their comments from YouTube. So this is really nice to see that they did this, and whoever edited this did a fantastic job. So here's what we do. We're going to go through and talk about sort of the main points that they hit on. The first one to talk about right away is character reworks, and they highlight a couple of comments where people say, rightfully so, you guys are, you know, only doing character reworks once a year, but you're putting out 2 or 3 uniforms a month, right? So it's obviously not that hard to rework characters, and so they admit basically, right? They admit here that no matter how hard it is, you know, once a year is just not enough, right? And they do a really funny thing here where they keep referencing, maybe they haven't done it yet, but they keep referencing someone who wrote Rework Wolverine. It's actually really, really funny somewhere. But anyways, so they basically acknowledge that reworking characters more often is basically a necessity. And so they essentially say, they talk about Odin's rework, but then they talk about Dormammu, and they identify Dormammu here because they reflect on the fact that Dormammu is probably the character who is the worst in terms of where he is and where he should be. So a character that has the largest gap between their power level. So some people may misinterpret this as them saying that they're going to absolutely rework Dormammu next. I mean, they could be reworking Dormammu next. I can't say that they're not, but I think when they're talking about Dormammu, they say that a character that's representative of what the players want in a rework. And so CM Monday says Dormammu, how good a character is, the character is so powerful that it can't be realized in the game, right? And so they talk about Odin's rework, but then they talk about Dormammu. So Odin and Dormammu came out around the same time in the game. They were just, you know, maybe 6 months or less than 6 months apart. So that's why a lot of players reference them. They're both universal types. They're both sort of larger than life. So that's why they get sort of paired up together a lot, and they're both universal, right? But the thing with Dormammu is if you look at his power level in the comics, sometimes it exceeds things in the sense of like Galactus, where he's an entire universe to himself. So how do you really reflect that sort of power level? So I think that's what they were trying to say. Not to say that Odin won't get reworked, but that Dormammu won't get reworked, but that he might. But yeah, they do acknowledge, and they say at least 6 character reworks a year is necessary. Now, it's unclear whether there are, again, it's kind of unclear. I think they're reading this message here, that at least 6 characters need to be reworked a year, and that 1 character rework a year is not enough. That's true, but they say, even though it's difficult, it should be done for the users. So I would love to see that. I think, yeah, character rework is necessary. CM Sunday is absolutely correct. I think 6 character reworks on top of the updates is excellent. That would be 1 character rework every other update. They release about 10 updates a year, so it would be almost every other update, and then sometimes we would double up, right? Like maybe because there's a long gap between the June update and the August update, there's not really supposed to be a July update. Maybe we could have 2 reworks in June and 2 reworks in August to sort of catch up in between, or sort of 1 and 2. But I think absolutely 6 character reworks is the minimum that they should be doing. Next up, they talk about, so that's really good, and I can't find the exact frame where they post in about reworking Wolverine, but it's there. It's 100% there, I promise. It's stuff there. It goes over his face. I really want to find it, but I have not yet found it. I've seen it when you watch the video. Anyways, the next thing to talk about is squad battle, and they reflect on how difficult squad battle is. And they basically just say that they're not going to be reworking squad battle or making it easier at this point, which I think is the correct answer. I don't think squad battle should be made easier. I think it is at a good difficulty level at the moment. Then they talk about CM Purine. I don't know who this is. I guess this is the CM on the Naver Cafe, which is the Korean forums. Apparently a lot of people miss this CM and want the CM to come back. So they have a pretty funny edit here where he says, you know, if I can get CM Purine or CM Purine to come back, we will. So I want to show you guys this pretty funny edit here. So yeah, I think CM Monday has a very memeable face, and they sort of capitalize on that. And then they talk about World Boss, and they talk about how players are asking the devs, we are asking the devs not to make World Boss weird. And I don't know, I don't really understand their answer. He says that World Boss was really difficult now, and it was really easy before. So it sort of makes me, there we go. His answer sort of makes me feel like they're not going to rework World Boss, but then when you look at the survey, World Boss was number 2. So I'm not really sure what that means, but anywho, based on their reaction and their answer, it doesn't seem like they have big plans for World Boss. They kind of brush it off, basically. Next up, they talk about Danger Room Extreme, and they talk about players complaining about the inconvenience of having to play for a very long time, like the full 5 minutes. They talk about how PvP is, Danger Room is PvP content, and so it's sensitive to players. You know, you don't want to lose, and no one wants to lose, right? So sometimes they kind of blame that on the game mode inaccurately, when it's not really the game mode, it's your teammates, or it's something else that happened. Maybe you played badly or whatever. But they're still listening very closely. They don't really give us any more clues or updates to what Extreme Danger Room should be or will be. We do have something from the dev note, but I would love to know more. But anywho, they talk about reporting bugs, which is pretty straightforward. Then the next funny thing here is, so they basically talk about how the first video, their first news video, was very formal, and it was sort of like they were just giving us information and not actually listening or talking to us. So they wanted to make this one more interactive, and so they do this little role play here with CM Monday. So this is actually quite funny. So CM Monday goes to play Marvel Future Fight, and he finishes the epic quest, right, for Star-Lord. Very, very funny timing with me just finishing the epic quest. Oh, but what happened? Star-Lord's gears are at 20? What's going on? Why aren't his gears 25? That's very weird and strange. He's losing stats. He's not going to have enough damage. And I still had to pay. I still had to pay 640 CCF. I still had to pay, you know, 8 blast books, right? I still had to pay to get him to tier 3, but he's not really tier 3 in the sense of other characters being tier 3. So the way they explained it is that they wanted to make it easier by not having the players, not putting extra steps in the epic quest to make the gears 25, but they could have just divided some of the, they could have just taken away some of the other steps for getting Star-Lord to level 70. because if you guys recall, in the Epic Quest, there's 5 different rewards, and there's 5 different stages with different requirements for getting Star-Lord to 62, 64, 66, 68, and 70. So they could have just skipped from 60 to 70 or 60 to 66 and then 66 to 70 and then had Gears to 22 and then Gears to 24 and then Gears to 25. Anyways, I digress. They don't really give a good answer about why they did this, but their answer is that they wanted to make it easier for the users. They wanted to casualize the experience of the game, sure, but they do acknowledge that, you know, the character doesn't seem to be as strong, and he is genuinely missing stats, right? He's missing a lot of stats. So they say for the next Epic Quests, we will consider this feedback. So that's good. I don't think they should do that in the next Epic Quest with the gear at 20, but, you know, whatever. The next thing to talk about is they sort of address the uniform issue where old uniforms would not be added to a character's growth score. We know that with the last update, for the Hulk update or the one before that, now all of the uniforms for a character will apply to their growth score. And they just sort of talk about why that is. I don't really care, to be honest. It was kind of just a whale move for whales to make whales happy. They didn't really address the problems with growth score because the way that, oh, hey, Dormammu, because the way that growth score is calculated is just very broken. And so if you take a look, Sandman is the perfect example. The rank 1 for a character can be very easily, not easily, but you can get rank 1 for a character without actually having a well-built character. Or did they finally change it? That Sandman is different. Oh, hang on. Oh, there we go. He's got Hawk's Eye with 5 dodge Uru or dodge ISO, of course. Yeah. So he doesn't even have the set bonus applied. There's no point system for having the actual set bonus active. The point system is just relying on you having the maximum rolls for all of the items, whether it's Uru, ISO 8, uniforms, or obelisks. So yeah, it's pretty dumb. They didn't address that, and that's really the issue with growth score and trying to get number 1 for a character. Not to mention the fact that when you go for number 1 for a character but you can't unlock their potential, like Odin, then you're just completely boxed out and left in the cold, and you can't participate even though you want to. So yeah, those are the problems with the growth score. Not forcing players to buy old uniforms, but yeah, they find a way to justify it with just some BS. And then one of the more interesting things, they talk about Cosmic Ghost Rider, and they acknowledge that although Cosmic Ghost Rider is super popular, a lot of people had, and I also had feedback that the bike looked really weird. The bike looked really weird, and the wheel was square, the modeling and the skill motions were strange. So they said the effects will be modified. Now, when they say that the effect will be modified, it sort of makes me wonder when this video was recorded, because we know that with the Hulk update, they took the bike out in the Guardians of the Galaxy update, but we know that they didn't update him. I mean, they said that they updated him, but we didn't really see any noticeable changes in Cosmic Ghost Rider in the Hulk update. So I'm wondering if this was recorded a while ago, or if we can expect more changes to his character model coming. Right, because it says the effect will be modified, so I'm not really sure. The next thing they talk about is Alliance Conquest, and this is probably the most interesting one here. So he loses in this garbage autoplay only nonsense, and he's upset, and he's like, why is there no Alliance Conquest improvements? Yup, simplified playtime, reward improvements, and bug fixes. So these are the 3 things that he highlights. Simplified playtime, I agree with that one. Currently, you have to play Alliance Conquest 3 times a day for 2 hours. And you have to do that 3 days in a row. Let me say that again. 2 hours, 3 times a day. That's 6 hours a day, plus 3 days. That's 18 hours of playtime for a game mode that's autoplay only. Does that sound stupid and ridiculous? Yes, because it is. Now, there are some people that like Alliance Conquest, and there are people that put up with Alliance Conquest and tolerate it, but there's no way that you can argue that you really need to play any game mode for 18 hours a week to actually enjoy it, right? There's just no way. You don't even play most PC games that long. Like, people don't even play Fortnite 18 hours a week anymore. So yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I absolutely agree that the playtime for Alliance Conquest needs to be simplified, and it needs to be simplified in the sense that there shouldn't be a time of the day where you have to log in, right? It's just the most simple thing. It's a mobile game, right? Mobile games are supposed to be on the go. On the go means you have 10 minutes, 15 minutes to play uninterrupted. You don't have an hour to sit there uninterrupted to play. That sounds like a console game, a PC game, right? So they need to have like a 24-hour window where Alliance Conquest is open for you to just do your thing. Obviously, that's going to make the game mode change in a much larger way, but that's actually what they end up saying. The next thing it talks about is, of course, rewards. Obviously, rewards need to be improved, and then bugs. Sure, they don't really address the core gameplay of Alliance Conquest, which kind of bugs me, the fact that it's autoplay only. But here we go. Let's talk about what he says, because it is actually quite interesting. So he says Alliance Conquest content is one of the core contents of Marvel Future Fight. I wasn't aware that it was one of the core contents of Marvel Future Fight. Alliance Conquest has been out since the 2nd anniversary, so it's been out for more than 3 years. And I imagine it's one of the least played game modes. I could be wrong. But I imagine that it's not as badly played. It's not as dead as Alliance Battle, but it's pretty close. Anywho, he says one of the core contents of the game, sure. Real-time PvP, co-op characteristics. I think you're using those phrases and those terms loosely. Real-time, maybe. PvP, no, it's not PvP. You're fighting against AI, and you're not even fighting. It's AI versus AI. That's what it is. It's AI. There's no player. There's AI versus AI. And then co-op characteristics. Sure, you have to cooperate with your Alliance members. Absolutely. Okay, so he talks about a Alliance Conquest. He paints kind of a way too optimistic picture of the game mode. And then he says it's a large volume of content with complicated rules. Okay, honestly, I feel like Alliance Conquest was made auto only because they wanted to simplify it to do less work. That's what I think. So it's strange that he says it's got complicated rules. I think World Boss or other game modes like that have more complicated rules. Alliance Conquest is just throw your characters into a pit and watch them battle each other. I don't know how it could be less complicated than that, right? All of the calculations are done by the AI, and you're not doing anything. There's no input on your end, so it's less complicated than anything else, right? It doesn't have to track your finger movements on the joystick. It doesn't have to track what buttons you press. I don't understand how that's complicated, but man, I'm not a Marvel Future Fight game developer genius. Okay, sure. Despite this important content, errors and bugs, they talk about, they apologize, and then they talk about, here we go. They want to make entire system improvements. So this sounds like an entire game mode overhaul. I hope that's what they're saying, because that's what it sounds like. They want to improve the entire system instead of fixing individual problems or increasing rewards. So rather than putting small incremental patches out to change little things, rather than putting band-aids on Alliance Conquest, they want to change it in a large way. Yes, I absolutely agree with that. Hopefully what they will do is, up to standard with 2020 game modes. We'll have to wait and see. But I do agree with the sentiment of fixing the whole thing from top to bottom, fixing the foundation of the house, fixing all of the floors of the house and the walls and the insulation, rather than just making small cosmetic changes here and there that aren't going to really amount to much in the long term. So I think that is definitely the right attitude, and that's definitely how Marvel Future Fight devs need to approach fixing Alliance Conquest, Alliance Tournament, Alliance Battle Extreme, Timeline Battle, and these kinds of game modes. So they say it's important and high volume content. High volume content makes it sound, again, like a lot of players play. Not 100% sure about that. Not 100% sure about that. We will do our best to make sure we can improve through preparation. Okay, sure. And then they talk about some other things that aren't as important to me covering them. They're like sort of more fluff stuff. They congratulate Odyssey, one of the alliances, for being #1 in Alliance Battle Extreme and getting the trophy, I believe. Is it the trophy for Alliance Battle or the trophy for Alliance Tournament? But yeah, and they talk about them being congratulated by other alliances, and then they talk about which mutant power you would choose if you could choose a mutant power to have, and they choose Magic or Namor, and then they talk about other suggestions. They talk about Gladiator and talk about his skills and his build and stuff like that, and then they talk about other things sort of related to the thing. There's one more funny thing here where they talk about, would you rather have absolute power in Marvel Future Fight, or would you rather have absolute power in the Marvel Future Fight community? And so CM Monday says, I think I would rather have absolute power in the community, and then he justifies it by saying this. And he just gives a really nice meme moment where he's basically, he's watching all of those weird people that upload strange things on the forums at night, like at dawn, things like that. He's at 4 or 5 in the morning. He's watching you to make sure that your posts get monitored and moderated properly. Now, I'm not sure if he's talking about the official Netmarble forums, because those are kind of a shit show, but maybe he's just talking about the Korean Naver Cafe. Hopefully, we would have a CM that is as dedicated as CM Monday and CM Sunday over on the official forums in English, because I feel like these two take their job quite seriously, and they seem like pretty fun guys. That'd be cool to like grab a beer with them or something. But yeah, that is the breakdown and explanation and my reaction to this Marvel Future Fight news. I know it's a long video, I apologize, but let me know what you guys think of CM Monday and CM Sunday's work, and let me know what you think of the information. Is Dormammu going to get a rework sometime soon? Is this sort of the clue? Is that how they're going to be doing it now with these sorts of videos, dropping hints here and there? What do you think of Danger Room Extreme? What do you think of Star-Lord Tier 3 gears and Alliance Conquest and things like that? Hit me up in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.